Y'all remember last year on our rehab series where we took an 87 IROC and turned it into kind of an autocross slash daily slash HPDE car? Well, this is season 2. That was IROC rehab. This is Fox Body rehab. Except this time, as opposed to going around corners, we're gonna go in a straight line, a very quick straight line. And I mean, you can't do a Camaro twice, right? So what do? You take the next biggest icon from the 80s, a Fox Body Mustang. But here's the thing. This one, we're doing the opposite. This one, we're going drag racing. Not only drag racing, we are recreating every kind of street strip car you saw in 1980s in the early 1990s that was made out of a Fox Body. Again, waiting for this for a long time. Get ready, because this is season 2 of Project Rehab. I've been wanting to build a Fox Body Mustang for the longest time, like the longest time. And Hemmings has finally given me the opportunity to do so. So remember last year when we did the IROC Rehab series? This is the new series, except now we're not in IROC, we're in Fox Body, so obviously this one's called Fox Body Rehab. But here's the thing, where we took the IROC last year and we decided to make somewhat of a kind of an autocross daily slash occasional HPDE car, on this one, I wanted to go back in time. I wanted to go back to when I was in high school, when I used to do a little street racing there and there. And I wanted to build a Fox Body that represented that. So that's what we're doing with this bad boy. So if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, I want you to think about what you used to see on the street. Now, I grew up on the East Coast, right? Brooklyn, New York, Long Island, all of that stuff. Brooklyn, New York, Long Island, it's actually the same place. But the fact of the matter is, everybody that used to street race, you had 3 cars. You had a Fox Body Mustang, you had the IROC Camaro, a couple of really wealthy guys had Grand Nationals, and then you had a smattering of muscle cars from back in the 60s thrown in for good measure. But there was a formula to the Foxes, and people stayed tried and true to that formula because it worked. So what was it? Fox Body Mustang is stripped down you could get, right? You would either get a notchback or you'd get a hatchback like this with the 5-liter. You could either go with the automatic or you could go with the 5-speed manual. Either was okay. There are those that will tell you, no, you have to go with the manual car, and there are others that will swear by the automatic. Now, for our purposes, we had a budget to kind of stick to, right? We kind of wanted this whole project to come in at around 30 grand, and that included the car. So what we have right here, this is a 1991 Ford Mustang LX, 5-liter, Fox Body chassis, automatic car, okay? It's got 112,000 miles on it, and it is really unmolested. A couple of things here and there that you're gonna notice. It's been dropped. It's got a set of like the Fover wheels on it, like the fake Cobra wheels on it. They're 17s. It's running at 255, 40, all 4 corners. And you know what? It's not bad. Is it tired? Sure it is, but that's okay, because what it does is it makes for the perfect candidate for our project. Now, when I talked about taking this back in time, taking it back to kind of my high school years and what we wanted to do with it, think of the formula, okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna big set of fat Mickey Thompsons in the rear, set of skinnies in the front, valve body on the transmission so we can actually shift and hold our gears. And of course, under the hood, we're gonna have a big, meaty Pro Charger, because that's what you did back in the day. We are not touching the internals of the 5-liter, because the fact of the matter is the motor is super solid and it runs beautifully. And I mean, these cars out of the factory, 225 horsepower and 300 pound-feet of torque. By today's standards, not a ton. But for late 80s, early 90s, like, they still get up and go, and they go pretty well. You know, these cars, you have to remember, are the Mustangs and the Camaros were just, they were such a part of growing up as kids. And they're actually really good cars. There's no reason these motors won't go to 200,000 miles or beyond if well maintained. The other part is, they're small cars. they're actually pretty light. This car weighs in at about 3,200 pounds. By today's standards, that's a featherweight, folks. Driving these cars are great. One of the things that I want you to understand is so much visibility for actually a smaller car. The windows, the belt line is so low, so my windows exterior are huge. My windshield is big, my rear hatch is big. The other part, because this is a hatch and not a notchback, I've got tons of storage room to the fact that I can basically lay down back there with the seats down and I fit. I'm 6'4", folks, so a lot of room. The other thing, the dash. I love the dash. In fact, the dash is so iconic that Ford recently put a backlayed image. Basically, in their new Mustang, you can scroll through different dashes, and the most famous, obviously, is the Fox. And so if you buy a brand new 2023, 2024 Mustang, hit a button, your dash will change to a Fox body, and you're instantly transported back 30 years. It's a pretty cool trick. You know, in this thing, you look, everything is actually not terrible quality when you're talking about the early 90s. This is, you know, pretty much the same style plastics that I have in my 96 Ford Bronco, and they've held up very well over the years. Nothing is creaking, nothing is really rattling. All these different switches up here, I love these kind of toggles. You know, they're just kind of fun to use. The HVAC system, simple as pie, and the cool part is it even has the original double-din stereo down here with the cassette, which is pretty trick. As for paint and body on this car, you know, if you look at it from 10, if you look at it, it's a 10-footer, okay? There are chips, there are some dings, there are some dents, there are some everything in this car. And I'll be honest with you, we paid $12K for this car. This is about the right price for what this car is, right? It's a little tired. The interior, super lucky. Interior on this car is immaculate, and I promise we're not gonna screw with that because it's just really nice. We are gonna put a couple of touch-up bits because there are some worn bits and bobs. So we'll brighten that up a little bit, make it a little nice and nice, right? Now, as far as the exterior goes, I got news. If you were drag racing back in the 80s, you had fatties on the back, skinnies on the front, you had a rake like this, you didn't put a cowl hood on that sucker, you're just doing it wrong, so you know that's happening. Is it gonna be the same color as the car? Folks, bro, if you were racing back then, you didn't have money to paint it. So you're gonna see as we do certain things how period this is gonna be. Is it a selfish act on my part? It totally is. But I think that anybody that grew up with a Fox body is gonna look at this car when we're done and go, holy crap, the folks at Hemmings knocked it out of the park. So when I talk about the car not being perfect, one of the things, like if you all look at the speedometer right now, the speedometer is bouncing around like it just took a bunch of cocaine and now it's jumping up and down on a trampoline. I don't know why it does that at slower speeds. As soon as you kind of just roll into the throttle a little bit more, put some power behind it, it totally evens out and it's fine. Everything on the car, believe it or not, works fairly well. I mean, the windows work great, HVAC works, the radio works. Even our little map light up here kind of works too, which is kind of cool. You know, these cars are becoming harder and harder to find. A stock unmolested Fox body is kind of a unicorn these days because they've been through so many hands over the last 30 years. Here's the thing also, I grew up with these cars. I've known them since they were new. The Fox body platform has been around since 1979. So 1979 to 1993. This car had a hell of a run. They made millions of them. And over the past 10 years, they've really come on strong in the collector market. And the other part is, they're brilliant drivers. If you just want a beautiful, nice, like cruiser, get this. Get a GT automatic, get an LX automatic with the 5-liter. They're fantastic. Again, not super fast, but really nice. This with the automatic came stock with 273 gears, but I believe you could get a 372 if I'm not mistaken. And somebody will correct me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's 372. If you wanted a little extra spunk, that was the option for the automatic. Now, with the 276s, it's great because what happens is you're cruising on the highway at 75 miles an hour and you're spinning under 2,000 RPM. You'll get 22 to 24 miles to the gallon out of this thing, and it's very comfortable. Like I said, I've got loads of leg room down here. I got super visibility, and it looks good. I mean, even today, just a great looking car, man. We're so excited to bring this car to you. I swear to God, so excited. With the road test complete, it was time to strap the Mustang to the dyno to get some baseline power numbers.
Well, what we do here is we normally take late model American muscle and we increase the horsepower or the performance of the vehicle. We do a little bit of everything here. So we do everything from engine repair, engine building, transmissions, suspension work, brakes, even basic maintenance we'll do on people's vehicles, because when they have a performance car, they would like someone who is familiar with their vehicle to work on it. My name is Kevin Martin, and I'm the owner of Twisted Synergy Motorsports in Rensselaer, New York. When I first saw your 91 Mustang, my thought was it's clean. It's a clean looking vehicle. And we see a lot of, especially 90s Fox bodies. People are interested in them and they want to do LS swaps and increase the power. And it's a lightweight platform, but a lot of them have been through the ringer. They've been abused. High school kids have had them for years. We had them. You know, everyone hammered on those things. And to find one that's as clean as yours is really nice to see.
So Junior's getting ready to back this thing in. So what do you, give us your thoughts, knowing what we're going to do to this car, what the goal is.
I think what the goal is that you would like to build this vehicle the same way you would have in the early 90s or you know, through the mid 90s. Something that everyone that was in high school and owned a Fox body back then, or you know, an IROC type of vehicle, would have done.
Right.
So I think you're right on point with it, because most people wouldn't have. You're not going to do an LS swap. You're not going to do any of that type of stuff back then. Didn't even exist. What would you have done to make it fast? You would have put a Pro Charger on it. Yeah. And then you would have went out and raced.
So as far as expectations, what do you think? Now this one is bone stock, right? Just from the factory, 1991, 111,000 miles on it. What do you think it's going to put out stock numbers with an automatic and with the gearing that it's got in it?
I think if it does really good, you might be in that 170 range at the tires. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. But you never know.
Terry, what do you think it's gonna make?
I was gonna pick 175 in the pool, but that's probably optimistic with the automatic.
Okay.
I mean, and after driving it over here, you know, it runs fine, but it doesn't have a lot of power. Any of us, if we had bought this car new, would have ordered the 5-speed, but here we are with the automatic. So it's going to suck a lot of power. The AOD is not a high performance transmission.
It's power hungry.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. But I think, listen, I think for, what do we pay for this? 12 grand?
Yes.
Right? So I think for 12 grand to find a stock Mustang that's completely unmolested with a couple of tiny little mods, I think this is a perfect representation of what the market is right now.
Normally when somebody brings one of these to us and they just get on the dyno and start doing something, it's not in this condition.
Right.
And they've spent close to this money, and it's not in this condition. Especially if they're looking for a standard trans.
So we're ahead of the game, is what you're saying?
I think you're ahead of the game, yes.
All right. All right, well, let's hook it up. Let's see what it does, man. I'm excited.
All right. Now, we had some guesstimates earlier on what we thought this was going to make for power. I was between 170 and 180.
Yep. I was right at 170.
Right at 170.
No, I think I picked 175.
I think you picked 175.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, we had 176.8.
Oh, okay.
So we were all right where we needed to be on this, and which means got a pretty healthy car as far as a Fox body is concerned with an automatic.
On the next episode of Fox Body Rehab, we go over our plan of attack for the Fox Body Mustang. We then lay out all the parts, talk about the Go Fast goodies, and introduce you to the team that's going to help transport us back in time to when these little cars from Ford dominated both the streets and drag strips in every town across the nation.
Okay, Tara, we came to the shop, threw it on the dyno. What are your thoughts?
I'm feeling good. The car made 176 horsepower. Yep. We figured it would do mid 170s. It did exactly what Ford intended for it to do. It held together. We revved it up over 6,000 RPM and it sounded good. So I think it's healthy. It's right where it's supposed to be, and I feel good about diving into this blower install.
Okay, well if that's the case, let's get it off the dyno, let's get it back to the shop, give it to Junior and have at it. What do you think?
That's great.
All right, let's